Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of ProFX Tutorials, where we teach you how to do effects like the pros. Sorry it's been so long since the last tutorial. We here at this channel, all of our VFX artist guys, we've been working on a lot of client work, a lot of private stuff, and some public stuff. If you want to go check that out, there'll be links in the description below to some of our work. Alrighty, and let's get started today. So, full spoiler warning for Avengers Infinity War. You heard it right here. Title card. Spoiler warning. If you have not seen Avengers Infinity War or do not want it to be spoiled, please do not watch this video until you have seen the movie. Everybody, one more time. Full spoiler warning for Infinity War. The end especially. Alrighty. So now's when we're going to start spoiling. So, like half the characters die at the end of this movie. Good times. But this isn't a review. What we're doing here today is the disintegration effect that happens to 50% of Earth's population after Thanos snaps his fingers. And they kind of disperse, turn into like this leaf, dust, dirt storm, and then just slowly the particles fade away. So we're going to teach you how to do that right here inside of After Effects. I know I looked around on YouTube. There is a lot of dispersion and disintegration effects out there, but the main majority of them, or any of them that look good at least, all use Trapcode Particular, which is a plugin and you do have to pay for from Red Giant Universe. But right here we're going to teach you how to do it all inside After Effects, no extra plugins, 100% free. So as long as you got After Effects, we can hop right in. Alright, right here inside of After Effects, let's open up a new comp. We got our footage right there. And so how you're going to want to film your actor, it's going to be them standing in frame, ideally standing pretty still, but again, you can do this however you want. So what I did right here, I filmed Preston over here, just filmed him standing in front of this, and then he walks out of frame. What you could do though, instead of that, is you could just film your actor on a green screen and then replace the background with whatever. And in fact, that may end up being easier, but we like to do it the hard way here, so this is just for anybody. Don't have to have a green screen, just a camera. So we get the footage right there. Let's open up a new comp without the footage, first of all. Disintegrate FX. And also what you're going to need, this is you can get from Google Images, you can get from download packs from different stock VFX websites. I just Googled it, Google grunge texture. Doesn't have to be black and white. If it's not black and white, you're going to want to put a tint on it later, but I just grabbed a black and white one. Something looking a little bit pixelated, kind of just grungy, decayed effects, some white, black, and some grays. We'll open up a new comp. Label it Disintegrate FX. You want to follow along right there, and then we're going to drop in our texture layer of that grunge texture. Again, just Google grunge texture, something, either this exact photo or something very similar will come up, and you can play around with different textures to mess with the effect as you like. Then we're going to drop down a white solid, make sure that's 100% white, pure white solid. We're going to go there and we're going to rename it. Rename that Transition Wipe. And we're going to add the effect Transition Linear Wipe right on top of there. And what you're going to want to do is tap the stopwatch on transition completion right at the beginning of the comp, have it be 0%, then go all the way to the end of the comp and drag it right up to 100%. We're going to turn off our text right here, and then you can just see it just goes from completely white to black. And on the feather, what we're looking at right here is 300, and again, this could change depending on your shot, but if it's a shot anything like mine, somewhere between 250 and 400 is where you're going to want to be. So we're going to max out at 300 on the feather for the linear wipe. As you can see, it makes a nice gradient wipe. Then we're going to go to Effect, Color Correction, add Colorama. We're going to go to the Input Phase, get phase from Alpha, Output Phase, use preset palette ramp gray on the output cycle. And as you can see, it just changed it back. Modify, check change empty pixels under modify on Colorama, and then that's what we're done with. Then you're going to want to change the blending mode on that transition wipe. I have it as linear light, but really anywhere between linear, vivid, and hard light is going to get you different ideas. all kind of the same effect, just at different levels of decay. It really depends on what you want to go for. For this, what I think worked best for our footage and this texture was linear light, so that's what we're going to keep it as. Then go back down to our texture, go to color correction and curves, and you can drop that down and change the contrast and highlights just to change the look of it, make that wipe again. So to explain what this is, this wipe right here is going to be the disintegration look and texture going across your subject, the body of whoever you're disintegrating. So just to shoot ahead, that's what this is. So you can adjust the curves likewise, and you can always come back to this composition and adjust the curves however you see fit. Alright, then we're going to go back into our project and grab our footage, drop that down, make it a new comp. We're going to leave the Disintegrate FX comp, and then we're going to trim up our footage to how we want. I think we're looking at, we just want the raise of the hand, then the look into the distance. Then we can just cut that off right there. Move it back to get our clean plate, if you didn't shoot a separate clean plate. Go freeze frame on that, time freeze frame, and then go back and rename it as clean, or clean plate, and drop that below. I pre-comp that, not 100% important, but I like to pre-comp everything just in case we need to go back on something. Drop that underneath. Now we're going to trim our comp to the work area, just give it a little bit of extra space back there. And we got our whole comp right there, looks at camera, looks into the distance, bam, gone. So we're going to rename that original footage, OG footy. Just so you know, you can always go back to that. That's the unmodified footage back there. So we're going to find the spot on our footage right where we want our body to start disintegrating, whether it starts from the left or the right, the hand and the head. What we're doing right here is we're starting at the left, moving to the right, with the particles flying up as you saw in the preview at the beginning, just like it did in the movie. So find where we want to start disintegrating, and then we're going to trim that footage, and that is Command-Shift-D for on Mac. And then we're going to pre-compose that footage. I labeled that Body Disintegrate. Then trim that up so it's the proper length. And then we'll go back to our image and drag that over to where it's correct. Alright, we're going to hop into our Body Disintegrate composition. We're going to drag the Disintegrate FX right on into there. Blammo. Alrighty, now in the Body Disintegrate composition, we're going to go on the original footage. We'll turn off the Disintegrate FX layer for a second. And we're going to go in there and do a rough garbage mask around our body. And we're going to want it to be pretty detailed at the beginning especially. And it can get kind of rough, and as far as tracking your footage, doesn't need to be too clean because again the body's going to be disintegrating away. And if this footage was filmed on a green screen, you're already light years ahead. You just key that out. Obviously you guys already know what you're doing if you're green screening it, or you could use the rotor brush, but I prefer to do masks. It's just a bit easier and honestly a bit more specific and works more consistently. So boopity boop, and that is masked. And we'll just animate that, blah 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 blah. Alright, and then once we have the mask completely animated and keyed out, we're going to label that Body Source. Then pre-compose it one more time just for fun. Just kidding, this comes back later, and we'll call it Body Input. And now back on, we can click that on, and then down under Body Input we'll change the track matte to Luma Matte, and blammo, tutorial's done. Aha, just kidding. Alright, so you look at here, we got a very gradual and slow linear wipe. So this is due to the speed of the 0% to 100%, and we're going to adjust that inside the Disintegrate FX composition as you see to your liking. But if you want, you can make it happen in bam, just a second, or you can make that disintegrate last for 10 seconds. I think good sweet spot is somewhere around 2 seconds, give or take. But feel free to play around. What we're going to do here is we're going to go right where we want it to get hit. See there, it starts to go on. And blammo, body gone by the end. We're going to go back into this Disintegrate FX. We're going to move that keyframe just so the linear wipe transition completes a bit quicker, so therefore the disintegration reaches the subject quicker and goes through disintegrating the whole subject faster as well. And so what I did right here is I went and duplicated the body disintegrate and renamed it. I duplicated it twice and then renamed them hand disintegrate and head disintegrate to disintegrate both the body, hand, and head at different speeds at different times with a little bit of a variable inside the texture, changing the curve adjustment a bit much and the speed of the disintegration. This is not necessary. You can take it off all in one, but really all it is rinse and repeating the same steps that you did for the body disintegrate, just making a duplicate for all of your footage and changing the mask to just be whatever body part you want to disintegrate faster. This would work especially well if someone was moving a bit or holding their arm out to the front. You wanted that to go away before the rest of it. So we'll fast forward through all that, blam, 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 and we got all three. So now what we're going to do is put a mask. We're going to go back over to our original footy and just put a square mask. Click that square mask key and drag it over the footage where our subject is, where we need them to be. And I'm going to keyframe this feather, start at 200 and stopwatch on the mask path. And then we're going to go through the length of the body, head, and hand disintegration. And we're going to keyframe that mask to slowly pan over a little bit quicker than the disintegration wipe does. So that way it goes to the clean plate as our body disintegrates. So the background of the disintegration is just your background, not your foreground. And so that way the foreground you can actually tell is disintegrating because it's not just disintegrating on top of the original footage, which is just your subject. Okay, now that we have the mask finished, as you can see, we solo out that layer. It just disintegrates away in that way. Once the body disintegrates, there's nothing but the background, and your subject is out of the foreground. And you got to be careful with your feathering. I had it, I believe, at 200, and I keyframed it a little bit because we want the background to look clean, and we'll put another mask on there later. But you don't want to feather it too much to where it just looks like your subject is fading out. You still want to see the details that's going on the actual body, that it's like crinkling away. So we can see that distortion, that texture coming through. So it's going to take a little bit of time to nail that mask. And then after it starts disintegrating, and then level it up so that there's 3 all right after in sequential order after the disintegration starts, and we're going to keyframe them. These are going to be for our particles. So it's going to be a piece of our original footage. We're going to freeze frame all of those and pre-compose them. And once we got them all pre-composed, and we want them pre-composed, moved all into a new composition, so that way they start at their start time and are completely full. Like that is the full. We want to pre-compose them by moving them all into their own composition. And then what we're going to do for each of the 3, we're going to draw a little mask inside the first composition on the original footy layer. And for the first one, we're going to draw the first half of the body, maybe the arm, a little bit of the chest, and some of the neck and head, but not too much, maybe just up to the chin. Then, second one, we're going to cut out middle of the body, a bit more of the head, and then on the third one, we're just going to cut out the arm, the farthest right of the subject. These are going to be our particles that are disapparating behind the disintegration. We're going to go to Effect, Simulation, and CC Pixel Poly for our first one, the Particle Burst one, Comp 1. Then as you can see, as we drag that forward, you see whatever that subject is starts splitting into little polygons, textured polygons. So we get a matched up, scoot it forward 2 or 3 frames ahead of the beginning, and then just cut that so they're already a little bit shattered out as it starts disintegrating. And now for the actual effects and components inside CC Pixel Poly, we're going to move our force down to 40 and our gravity down to -0.5. We want our dust to flow with the wind and rise up. We're going to move our grid spacing to 6 and our speed randomness to 100 and our direction randomness to 5. And we're going to move the force center over, so the force center on CC Pixel Poly is where all the polygons are moving away from, where they're being pushed from, where the force is at its center. And we're going to hit the stopwatch on the force center and keyframe that a little bit, just so they aren't all flying in the same direction, and so they gradually move and float away and up. But we'll start with it a little bit closer to the polygons so they're not completely flying out immediately. And then as we keyframe that around a few frames back, let's say 3 or 4 frames forward, hit that stopwatch, and then slowly move the force center back. So as you can see right there, they're all drifting away. And we'll move that down the timeline over to 4 seconds. And move that back over so none of it is going behind. And let's see, that way they're floating all to the left and up with the wind in the direction that they're disintegrating from. And we'll make another keyframe just so there's not too much behind the neck. We don't want it floating behind the subject that hasn't been disintegrated yet, so we'll move that over. We don't want to make these moves too drastic, otherwise it'll look like your particles and dust is just flowing around willy-wally, just flying all across the place. And so we're going to copy that effect and then paste it onto our next particle burst comp and follow the same steps, just slightly differently. We want it to move the force center a bit differently so it flows in the same direction, but it's going to have a different start point and a different end point to get it to flow. We don't want it to look like there's 3 different particle bursts. It's all one gradual disintegration of particles. So we're going to move that up so there's a little bit less skin. And don't worry too much about the color of the particles that are drifting out. We're going to fix that in a minute. We're going to, because in the movie Avengers, you kind of see it starts as their skin color, their clothes, and then as it slowly drifts off, they and the dust both kind of turn to like a dark brown dirt color, like a dirty leaves. Alright, so again, just repeat those same steps, just copy and paste, and then move the force center for all 3 compositions. And if you want more particles, you can make multiple particle burst compositions. It all really depends on what you're going for and the size of your subject that is disintegrating. Let's fast forward all of that. And looky there. Okay, so now we're going to work on color correcting the particles. So we're going to pre-compose all of our particle burst compositions. So if you go into that composition, you can see, trim it to work area, so it all starts from there, move it back, blammo. So that's all of our particles drifting away. So this is a completely separate layer than the actual disintegration of your original subject. So on the particle burst pre-composition, we're going to go under Effect, Color Correction, Tritone, and we're going to change the highlights, midtones, and the shadows all to a different brown. We're going to lower the highlights a lot. It's not going to be a bright brown, and keep the midtones kind of in the middle. And then after you get a color you desire, something that works for your footage and the look you're going for, you're going to go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, and drop it into CC Vector Blur. This will kind of take away from the polygon look and make it look a bit more random, and change the type to perpendicular. The amount I landed on was 9, but I actually keyframed that That is up to you. You can move it to what you like, but I thought it looked good that it started a bit more solid and then kind of faded a little bit, because we'll also have it fade out later. So I started at 5 at the beginning of the comp for the vector blur, and then slowly moved to 9 about a second and a half in. I just thought that had a nice little look. You can do that, or you can do a different keyframe if you'd like. So what we're also going to do with the tritone effect is at the beginning of our composition, hit the stopwatch on blend with original at 100%, blend with original. So that way it starts out the color of the skin, starts out looking just like it's pieces of the body or pieces of your subject. And then we're going to move in slowly into the composition and then drag that down to 0%. And then as you see there, kind of slowly turns into the all brown. Then after that, we're going to hop onto our body disintegration comp. And we're going to repeat the steps with the tritone, not the vector blur. We don't want our body blurring out. So we're going to drop that same tritone effect and do another keyframing with blend with original, but a bit slower. We don't want our body to turn brown immediately. But again, it just depends on what you're looking for in your effect. So as you can see right there, slowly turns to brown at the end of the disintegration. So by the time the head is completely gone, the body is also turning into like the brown, dirty dust. And if you follow all those steps properly, you get something that looks a little bit like this. Alrighty, thank you guys. Thank you once again for watching another tutorial. I hope this has been helpful. Shout out in the comments if you have any questions, any other effects that you want us to do. I do answer requests from the comments. Again, sorry it's been so long since the last video. Been a lot of work outside of this channel been going on, both into other channels' YouTube videos and some client work outside of YouTube, so that's pretty cool. But I promise to all the subscribers out there, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, LOL, and there will be more content coming your way soon. Let me know in the comments, what did you guys think of Infinity War, and what other effects would you like me to tackle in the future? Alrighty guys, thank you, bye.